Video games can offer us these long and expansive experiences, but sometimes you need a palate cleanser. A game to play in between those longer adventures that can just give you a bit of a break. And that's why we're going to talk about 5 games that you can finish in 5 hours or less. And they're not just short, they're also good games. And the first game on this list is an adventure game called Thank Goodness You're Here. It's an extremely quirky yet stylized adventure game where you play as the tiniest traveling salesman in a town called Barnsworth. What starts off as a very simple trip to meet the mayor of town turns into a very bizarre set of errands for all of the townspeople. And although the puzzles in this game are quite simple, the scenarios that your character winds up in are extremely strange. And I mean that in the best way possible. Thank Goodness You're Here features some of the funniest and weirdest and zaniest characters and lines that I've experienced in a video game.
Oh, thank goodness you're here. I've been sucking this pipe all morning. I haven't got a drop out of it.
There's just so much weird goodness happening in this game that I couldn't wait to advance to the next scenario. Because I knew whatever it was going to be, it's going to be funny and it's going to be strange. And although I finished this game in about 2 hours, I did only get about half of the Steam achievements. Which means that there's probably a handful of puzzles and interactions and lines that I just haven't experienced yet. So if 2 hours seems like it might be too short, just rest assured that there's probably some other stuff to fill your time with. And given what I've seen of the game, whatever is left that I haven't experienced yet, I'm sure is hilarious. But if you're looking for something with a different kind of quirk, then we should talk about a game called Minit. Minit is a top-down adventure game where you play as a little dude who only lives for 60 seconds. So your goal is to solve as many puzzles as you can in that minute before you die and start over. But the good news here is that you don't lose the items you find, you just start back at your house. But what makes Minit interesting isn't the fact that you die every 60 seconds, it's how the game goes out of its way to waste your time. One glaring example of this is an old tortoise hanging out by a lighthouse who has a very long-winded conversation which takes about 20 to 30 seconds to get through. And that might not seem like a long time in general, but when you only have 60 seconds to live, it's pretty bad. And it took a little bit of getting used to at first because you get into a puzzle solving groove in these kinds of games, and the same thing happens here in Minit. But since you're only alive for that 60 seconds, you have to start every loop with a really good plan or you're gonna waste your time. But once you do get comfortable with that repetition, you're gonna find that this game actually has you thinking about a lot of these puzzles in very segmented ways, which I found very interesting. The more I played this game, the more I thought about every single thing I did and how it used up some of the time that I have, right down to how long it takes you to swing a sword. Because there are certain pathways in this game that will take a little longer if you take too long fighting enemies in those areas. Overall, I just found it very interesting how this 60-second lifespan affected my entire experience, and otherwise I think this game would have been kind of forgettable. But instead I decided to tell you about it because I think you're going to enjoy it. Next up, we've got a very chill and, dare I say, adorable game called Lil Gator Game. This is more of a cozy exploration action-ish game where you play as a tiny little alligator who's basically pretending to be Link from The Legend of Zelda. And the whole point of this game is for the little gator to convince his older sister to just put down her homework and start playing games with him. So this little gator got all of his friends together and they all set up little quests for him to solve so that he can show his sister just how much fun he's having without her. This, of course, is to convince her to play with him, but in the meantime, you get to take this little alligator on all these little fun adventures that his friends made up for him. The simplicity of this game is what makes it approachable and enjoyable for just about anybody. It's probably the most feel-good video game that I've played in a while, and there's really just nothing to dislike here. Obviously, there's not much of a challenge in this game, but the challenges that do exist are more skill-based, and even those aren't that bad. This game is the perfect palate cleanser, not just because of its 3-hour playtime, but also because it's really adorable and cute and just fun to play. It's like the ideal game to have in between bigger experiences. And it also tells a touching story about a little brother who's dealing with the fact that his older sister is kind of growing out of playtime. So while you're playing this game and enjoying all these cute little adventures, you're thinking, is his sister gonna put down her work to play with him? I really hope she does. So while it is all very fun and simple, there is a heartfelt story being told. Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion is about a cartoon Turnip who has committed tax evasion. And as a result of this financial plight, Mayor Onion confronts Turnip Boy and tells him that he's basically now his assistant. So as the mayor sends Turnip Boy on different errands, he's trying to make good with the town and get his taxes paid, but every chance Turnip Boy gets to ignore the law or even spit in the face of it, he does so. So you'll run around the map doing errands for all the townspeople, but you're also not really helping anybody in good ways either. I knew this game was a little off when I was confronted with a renter who wouldn't wouldn't pay his rent. It was a snail. The blueberry told me that he wanted the renter to pay his money, but since I had a sword, all I could do was kill the snail. Of course, this led to the blueberry yelling, "Oh my gosh, why did you kill Jerry? Why did you do that? I just wanted him to pay money." But then he was okay after I gave him Jerry's money. Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion is full of strange scenarios such as this, and it's hilarious. It's a top-down adventure game. There's simple combat that's actually quite enjoyable, but the meat and potatoes of this game is the fact that it's just so strange. It's just really nice to have yet another game that doesn't take itself too seriously at all, but does wind up being enjoyable all the same. And one of the main things pulling me through Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion was the fact that I knew I'd be meeting more and more weird characters as the game progressed. And of course, it's fun to fight ridiculous bosses, but it's even more fun to just go around ripping up important documents in the face of each of these characters. Something about that was deeply hilarious to me. And that brings us to an extremely stylish side-scrolling shooter called My Friend Pedro. In this game, you play as what can only be described as a homicidal maniac who runs around with 2 guns and can do backflips in bullet time. And the goal of every level is to clear out all the bad guys in the most stylish way possible. You're gonna be doing all these crazy acrobatics, hanging upside down from cables, shooting your 2 guns, running off of walls, doing twisties in the air, all in the name of high scores. And while you're committing all of these atrocities, you're being egged on by an imaginary banana who talks to you. My Friend Pedro rewards your creativity with your ability to figure out the coolest way to execute all of your enemies at once. And as you get more and more comfortable in the game, you're gonna stop and look at scenarios and think, how is the coolest way that I can do this? And so far, one of my favorite moves has been to kick a frying pan up in the air, shoot it, and then watch the bullets ricochet off and kill enemies. And even though My Friend Pedro takes about 4 to 5 hours to finish, replaying older levels for a better score is a great way to get more replay value out of it. And there are plenty of other games out there that are short and sweet and worth your time, so if any games came to mind throughout this video, please let me know in the comments. Not only does that help me, but anybody else watching is also going to be able to see that these other games are out there that won't take 60 hours to play through. And games like this are also perfect for handheld gaming, which means they're really good for vacations or commuting. If you like the video, make sure you like the video, and if you really like the video and you want to see and hear more of this, then make sure you subscribe to my channel. And of course, thank you very much for letting me talk your ear off about 5 games that'll take you about 5 or so hours to beat, and I will see you in the next one.